10 years, went to the Eastern Conference semifinals at least 9 times. Went to a finals once. This is in the Charles Oakley era. And this guy is a guy that is revered. He's loved by a lot of New Yorkers. He epitomizes and personifies all the good parts. And if I don't want to call it glory days because there were no championships to speak of then, but definitely it was one of those situations where compared to what we have been experiencing since 2001, to call it glory years is definitely apropos. For all the wrong reasons, by the way, because it just speaks to how awful the New York Knicks have been since that time. But in the end, what it comes down to is this. Charles Oakley showed up to the Knicks game last night. He was given a ticket by one of his friends. He was in the stands, and when he was in the stands, you suddenly saw security approached him. 1 individual, 2 individuals, 4 individuals. He slapped he mushed one person in the face. I believe that was guard and security. He turned around after that and pushed another individual 2 more times, basically saying, "Get your hands off me, get your hands off me." As a result, an abundance of them descended upon him. And after the second shove, if I remember correctly, I think he accidentally touched someone to his left, so he reached out to show concern for them, because he certainly didn't want to do anybody harm in that regard. But then after that, they grabbed him and forcibly escorted him outside the basketball area of Madison Square Garden. Brought him to the tunnels. Once they brought him to the tunnels, Phil Jackson got out of the stands and went out there, trying to implore him to calm down, keep himself together. Went unsuccessful in doing so, because by that time, Oakley was irate and screaming Lord knows what towards James Dolan, who still was sitting courtside and was out the vicinity. He was outside of earshot of what Oakley was saying, obviously. Phil Jackson, according to my sources, felt the need to call one Michael Jordan. For those of you who don't know, it's Charles Oakley's best friend. Somebody that Charles Oakley would take a bullet for if he had to. And Michael Jordan was the one individual capable of calming Oakley down. But by this time, once Phil Jackson called, Michael Jordan was unable to reach Oakley, because the police had already arrested him, escorted him outside of Madison Square Garden, and took him across the street to the police precinct, where he was held for a few hours before being released at approximately midnight. Once released, I spoke to him. Charles Oakley has an entirely different story than the New York Knicks. Charles Oakley's position is that he walked into the arena with a ticket given to him by a friend. He said absolutely nothing to James Dolan, was not bothering anybody, was looking forward to watching the game. He saw James Dolan peek over his shoulder, noticing that Charles Oakley was sitting in the stands. And Charles Oakley claims that it was at that time that security came over and wanted him removed. Charles Oakley said he had just arrived to the arena literally 4 to 4.5 minutes earlier. I don't know why he would say 4.5 instead of 4 or 5, but that's what he said. And his position is that he wasn't bothering anybody. The New York Knicks have an entirely different explanation. The New York Knicks claim that James Dolan was sitting where he always sits, which is courtside, baseline by the Knicks bench. Barry Watkins, his executive for the communications, head of communications department for the New York Knicks in Madison Square Garden. And if there ever was a right hand that James Dolan has, it is definitely Barry Watkins. Barry Watkins was sitting right next to James Dolan, as always, at which time Charles Oakley was screaming and spewing stuff in their direction. This is according to the Knicks. And it was at that time that they decided that he needed to be removed. The New York Knicks emphatically claim that under no circumstances would they have a former player, particularly one of his magnitude, removed from an arena just because he showed up and they didn't want him there. That would be ridiculous, they said. Charles Oakley is saying that is precisely what happened. So what it comes down to, ladies and gentlemen, is that there are two sides to every story. And then there's the truth. The truth possibly can preside on one side or the other, or in between. We do not know. All I can tell you is what the Knicks have said and what Charles Oakley is saying. Now, Charles Oakley has told us earlier this morning that he will come on today's show. I happen to know that that the New York Knicks strongly wish he would not. They had their druthers. He will not appear. He will not call. But Charles Oakley swears he's going to call anyway. We shall see. Number to call up is 866-729-ESPN. That's 866-729-3776. 98.7 FM in New York, 710 ESPN LA. And, of course, ESPN, Sirius XM, Channel 80. All of these things are things that you point to. Here's what I will say. I cannot defend Charles Oakley's actions in terms of shoving security or law enforcement officials or whomever. They're just doing their jobs. They asked you to leave because that's what they were asked to do. They have obligations to handle whatever it is that they had to handle, and they approached Charles Oakley in that fashion. He should not have pushed anybody, and it certainly didn't look good for him at 6'8", 6'9", 260 pounds, built like a chiseled brick house, a big boy, a very powerful boy, reminiscent of his law enforcement days. Looks like he could take off his shirt and go out there and play right now. He certainly did not look good doing that. But I'm going to tell you who else looked bad. It was the New York Knicks with that statement issued through their PR department, where the very last line of their statement said Charles Oakley was a great Knick. We sincerely hope he gets the help he needs, implying that there was something psychotic and beyond wrong with him. That's a very, very classless thing for the New York Knicks to do. It was wrong. They had no business doing that. That is very, very unfortunate that they would talk that way about one of their former players. And it reeks to me of something from James Dolan. That didn't come from Phil. Phil was the one that walked out in the tunnel and was very concerned about Oakley. That came from Dolan. And if it didn't come from Dolan, then it came from the Knicks PR department, who should be ashamed of his damn self for doing something like that to a former player attached to the level of success that they've had. 866-729 ESPN. That's 866-729-3776. Who do you side with? Who do you believe is telling the truth? That's really, really what I want to know before Oakley comes on these airwaves. Think about that for a second. The biggest medical center on earth isn't found on the East Coast or the West Coast. It's found in Houston, Texas, America's third coast. Houston is home to the Texas Medical Center, or as they call it, TMC. It's the largest medical city on the planet. Each year, TMC's 21 hospitals serve over 8 million patients. Its 3 medical schools and 6 nursing schools educate tomorrow's medical leaders. More doctors, nurses, and scientists work at the TMC than any other site in the world. With over 100,000 employees, it's the 8th largest business district in America. Every 3 minutes, a surgery begins at the TMC. Every 20 minutes, a baby is born. The Texas Medical Center leads the world in clinical research. TMC doctors and scientists are at the forefront of life-saving medical advances, developing new treatments, drugs, and devices to improve the health of humanity. So find out more about the innovations happening at the Texas Medical Center. It's at tmc.edu. Your calls and more up next. Who do you side with? Charles Oakley or the New York Knicks? And oh, by the way, there was a game last night. Predictably, the Knicks lost. It was to the Los Angeles Clippers. Forget Melo to Cleveland. When the hell is he going to get to Los Angeles to play for the Clippers? That's a legitimate question. I'm interested in knowing y'all answer to that as well. It's Stephen A. on ESPN Radio. I'm told that Charles Oakley, making news last night after being arrested at Madison Square Garden following altercations with several members of security at Madison Square Garden, including law enforcement officials, garden security, et cetera, based on a dispute he evidently has with the Knicks. He's scheduled to call into the show. I happen to know that's something that the New York Knicks absolutely positively do not want him to do. So as far as I'm concerned, we don't have him on this show until we have him on this show. 866-729-3776 is 866-729-ESPN. Considering all that's transpired in the last 12 hours or so, a little bit more than that actually, seeing Phil Jackson's involvement, seeing Charles Oakley and how he responded to things, seeing how disgusted he is at the New York Knicks, and he is not alone in that regard. When you think about this, what do you think about? Do you think about Charles Oakley's behavior? Do you think about James Dolan? Do you think about Phil Jackson and Carmelo Anthony? I'm interested in knowing your thoughts at 866-729-ESPN, 866-729-3776. Let's go to the phones. Let's go to Al in Staten Island. You're live with Stephen A. What's going on, Al?
Stephen A., good afternoon. How are you?
I'm doing great. Thank you.
I'm trying to put my words together in the best to show how I feel right now. When you have a player who was a warrior, a legend in Knicks history as far as I'm concerned with his time with the New York Knicks, and to abolish him from allowed to go to the Garden, to not include him in the 70th anniversary of the Knicks history, okay? Dolan has gone too far. I don't care if Oakley said whatever he said, if anything was said. He didn't put his hands on anybody till security came over. It is a travesty. It makes Ted Stepien look like Jimmy Buss as far as an owner, and from those Cleveland days. It is a travesty that this is like almost the bottom of the barrel, but the icing of the cake on this Knicks team that has not won a title since 1973. As a Knicks fan all my life, I am sickened by this, and I'm telling you, the Knicks PR staff and anybody involved with the New York Knicks should definitely make it right with Charles Oakley. And you want to know what? It doesn't take Adam Silver to be the go-between. Dolan should take his calls and his invite with open arms and not treat him like a dog. It shows the kind of person and character that Dolan is. A little boy who took over daddy's business and has run the Knicks into the ground.
Al, I've got to run, but I appreciate the call, and I definitely get where you're coming from. I understand it. Your points are heard loud and clear. Let's go to Sam in Westchester. You're live with Stephen A. on ESPN Radio. What's up, Sam?
Stephen A., how are you?
I'm good. Talk to me.
Well, I got to tell you, watching you over the years, I saw you this morning talking to Max, and I really don't want to take sides on the Knicks or his side, but I think that knowing him, how he is, and the type of personality that he has, I think it was all in the approach of what it was, because everybody wanted to come to the rescue and talk to him and try to calm him down. Once he was already being restrained, that's when Phil came down. That's when everyone came down. And to tell you the truth, if you watch Dolan, he didn't seem surprised at all. So the question really is, did they incite him? Did they come at him the wrong way? Especially him being who he is. And you made a good point earlier where you said they were going to hit him with criminal trespassing charges. So did he know that he wasn't allowed in the Garden?
We don't know. I reached out to the New York Knicks this morning and asked them something along those lines, whether or not they had something like that. They said, had he received a letter where they were informing him of such things? The answer was not to their knowledge. The people that I asked, who obviously are very connected to the situation. So for me, I don't know what to say about it. If he didn't receive a letter, then it wasn't criminal trespassing. How is it criminal trespassing? Because you showed up at a game with a ticket. unless there was a letter prohibiting you from showing up and was made clear to you that you weren't wanted at Madison Square Garden, and you showed it anyway. I don't understand the trespassing charge. That really confused me.
Correct. And how do you exactly? So how are you gonna say you're pressing trespassing charges against them? And I think honestly, if they would have walked up to him, and maybe one of them walked up to him and said, "Hey, listen, you know you're not supposed to be here. Whatever it is, settle out with Dolan later," and came at him that way. But when you get 6 guys coming at you and you have a temper, what are you gonna do? You're gonna react.
Yeah, I mean, that's true, but you still got to control. Listen, I love Charles Oakley. I've known him for years. I've known him for 20 years. But you still got to control yourself to some degree. And like I said, if we find out that he didn't say anything and the Knicks did this, sent security to remove him, that's a different problem. But we need to emphasize it's a different problem. We don't need to be over the airwaves acting like you're justified for pushing and shoving security officials who are just doing their job. If they were asked to go and remove you from the arena, they don't know any better. If Dolan indeed asked that, and the New York Knicks are saying that is not the case until Charles Oakley was acting up verbally. But if that didn't happen, even if that didn't happen, security has nothing to do with this. You can argue or whatever, but you got to leave. You can't shove folks like that. And it certainly didn't look good for him to be 6'9", 260 pounds, shoving folks like that. People are going to take it wrong. But I appreciate the call, Sam. Thank you so much. Let's go to Charlie in Woodside. You're live with Stephen A. on ESPN Radio. What's up, Charlie?
How's it going, Stephen A? You're a big fan of the show.
Thank you.
Okay. I want to say, I know Oakley did what he did, shoving securities was wrong, but the way the New York Knicks handled the PR movement with the Oakley should get a help and whatever. That shows how dysfunctional the New York Knicks have been. It all sounds now allegedly Charles Oakley called out Jim Dolan and whatever, and it all starts with Phil Jackson. The mess has created on the field, and now onto the Charles Oakley calling out. He is one of the great Knicks, one of the glory days the Knicks had on the 90s with Pat Riley and Jeff Van Gundy. Now it's all a mess since. And the guy who's suffering the most, and of course, New York Knicks, true loyal Knicks fans, but the guy who's suffering the most.
I got it. I got you. I understand. For some reason, I sound like you just trying to imitate somebody. I don't know if you sound normal, and I'm just not trying to listen to that right now. Listen, in the end, what it comes down to is this. We can try to put this on the New York Knicks, and get into Phil Jackson, because Lord knows he's been inept as an executive. He needs to go back to Los Angeles, hang out with Jeannie, rekindle the relationship, go be a Laker again, because I think that's where he truly, truly wants to be. But the flip side to all of that is this. I can't even blame Phil for this. Again, something happened. We'll try to get to the bottom of it. But it wasn't a good look for Oakley to be in that situation on video. And it certainly wasn't a good look for the New York Knicks to issue that press release where they said those last words in there. They hope he gets the help that he needs. That was a low blow. It showed how petty the New York Knicks can get sometimes. And they're supposed to be above that. They really, really are. 866-729-ESPN. That's 866-729-3776. More of the Stephen A. Smith Show on ESPN Radio. With you in a minute. New York Knicks last night. We're so busy talking about Charles Oakley, we forgot to talk about the team that the New York Knicks actually played against, which was the Los Angeles Clippers. And watching the Los Angeles Clippers, even though they won 119-115, I got to confess to you, I'm just of the mindset, I don't blame them. I think they should go after Melo. To walk around and stand pat acting like you literally are going to win a championship. I don't see anything in the Clippers that tell me that they are those dudes. I just don't. I really, really don't. I'm not being disrespectful by any stretch. I look at the Los Angeles Clippers. I think they're a very talented team. I think they're exceptionally well coached. I think they're going to be significantly better once Chris Paul returns. But I don't look at them and see championship. I look at them and see very good, but not title contenders. I could be wrong, but I just don't. And maybe, just maybe, you want to hold on to the pieces as opposed to moving anybody because you want to, you don't want to lose Blake Griffin or somebody for Carmelo Anthony. But if there is any truth to the reports that the New York Knicks would give up Carmelo Anthony and don't require a CP3 or a Blake Griffin or a DeAndre Jordan back, I don't know what else to say. I have no explanation for that. I mean, I'm at a loss. Seriously. I look at the Clippers as a very good basketball team. I shouldn't say not title contenders, because obviously if you're one of the top 5 teams in the NBA, you're a title contender. But does any of us truly, really believe that the Clippers would beat the Warriors? Not me. But we shall see. We shall see. And notice I'd love to bring up the Lakers. I mean, who wouldn't want to bring up the Lakers? LA's a Lakers town, purple and gold. But you're like 18 and 36. Come talk to me when your ability to be relevant again shows itself. That would be very, very helpful. 866-729-ESPN. That's 866-729-3776. Back to the phones we go. Let's go to Calvin in Chicago. You're live with Stephen A. on ESPN Radio. What's up, Cal? Calvin, are you there? Calvin in Chicago, are you there? Mark in Virginia. You're live with Stephen A. on ESPN Radio. What's up, Mark?
Good afternoon, Stephen A. This is Mark from Virginia, but I was actually born and raised in Brooklyn, New York.
I introduced you as Mark from Virginia, and if you're from Brooklyn, New York, you should have said Mark from Brooklyn, but go ahead.
True that. I'm a big fan of Stephen A., big fan of you, brother. I just want to say with this Charles Oakley situation, Stephen A., this thing is to the point where it's childish. It's absolutely childish. I was born in 73, so I've been a Knicks fan forever and haven't seen them win anything. And this thing with the ownership, I think it rolls downhill. This thing with the ownership with dealing with Carmelo, I think it rolled down to not only the legend like Charles Oakley of the Knicks, but also to the fans. It's to the point where the fans is frustrated, the legends are frustrated, everyone is frustrated and confused with where are the Knicks going and why is the leadership doing the things that they're doing. It's to the point where I'm confused and I'm thinking, like I've been a Knicks fan for 43 years, am I ready to walk away from this organization? Because it's to the point.
Yeah, Mark. But here's the question. Where you going? If you walk away, where you going?
That's true, Stephen A.
Exactly. So stop lying. You're just being emotional right now. Stop lying.
I'm very emotional, Stephen A. I'm very emotional because this is to the point where I turn on my TV and I watch the Knicks faithfully every night, and I'm still watching them and understanding that they're going nowhere and they're going nowhere fast and nothing is being done.
I got you. I appreciate the call. Thank you so much. And I got to tell you something right now. This is the thing that I'm shocked that none of y'all brought up. Here we are, ladies and gentlemen. This is the year 2017. You got the 2 largest markets in the country in New York and L.A. And our basketball representatives of the New York Knicks and the Los Angeles Lakers. Los Angeles 18 and 36 haven't been relevant since Jim Buss really took over and Kobe went down. And Jim Buss allowed his ego to get in the way of his professional development and act like he was absent of a basketball IQ, because of rivalries with his sister and all of this other stuff. I mean, just don't get me started. And if you're in the New York Knicks, let me tell y'all some stats that I want y'all to know. Do you know that since Phil arrived in New York, his record is like 71 and 46? Do you know that right now he's actually doing slightly worse than what y'all used to lament Isaiah Thomas about because of what he did? Did you know that since Jeff Van Gundy resigned on December 8th of 2001, that you got to remember, keep in mind, New York Knicks in Charles Oakley's 10 years, they went to the conference semifinals 9 times, at least. And a couple of times, they went to conference finals, and they definitely went to NBA finals. And took the Houston Rockets and the Hakeem the Dream Olajuwon and those boys to a Game 7. But do you know that after that, 2001, Jeff Van Gundy decides to leave the New York Knicks. December 8th, 2001. Do you know that since that time, the New York Knicks are 509 and 740? Did you know that? The New York Knicks are 231 games under 500 since Jeff Van Gundy left. Do you know that the New York Knicks have only made the playoffs 4 times in 13 years? 4 times. I'm sorry, 4 times in 16 years. 2001 to 2017. New York Knicks have made the playoffs 4 times. Do you know that they won 7 playoff games? Ladies and gentlemen, it takes 4 games to win a playoff series. 4! And they won 7 in 16 years. 7 games. I mean, you can't make this up. This futility, you just can't make this up. Ross in Long Island, you're live with Stephen A. Go.
Hey, Steve, what's up? I've been listening to you for a while. You're my favorite. I'm happy you're back at ESPN. You're a little bit more boisterous than you've ever been before. Nonetheless, you have thousands of calls an hour, so it doesn't make a real difference what I think.
Glad you know that, but I appreciate the support. Go ahead.
Yes, you got it. I'm calling in regards to this Charles Oakley scenario. I think it's ridiculous. I've watched it over and over about 10 to 15 times, and I'm not a bigot, nor am I a racist, okay? I looked at it with a clear eye and clear vision, okay? And you take a look at it, and it's clearly Charles Oakley's fault. James Dolan wasn't in the picture. James Dolan could have said a million words to him. James Dolan could have told him to excuse my language, get out of here, okay? There were guards there. The guards didn't want to touch him. Clearly didn't want to touch him. He clearly made it real that he was angry, and he clearly acted inappropriate. Is there any other way to look at it?
Ross, can I tell you something? Can you hear me, Ross?
Absolutely.
I don't care who disagrees with you. That doesn't make you racist or anything like that. There was no need to preface your comments like that. You looked at the video. You are more than entitled to jump to such a conclusion if you so choose. And anybody that has a problem with you with that, tell them to kick rocks. There's nothing offensive about what you just said.
We
saw the video.
You got to be careful. You know what I mean?
Yeah, but I'm saying you looked at the video and you jumped and you drew a conclusion based on what you saw. There's nothing wrong with that, bro. You're always welcome to give that opinion on this show. Don't worry about that. Okay? Thank you, Ross. Michael in Indiana, you're live with Stephen A. on ESPN Radio. Go ahead real quick, Michael.
Hey, Stephen A., I was just wondering, I know the situation got heated there, but I wonder if Charles Oakley used that time to try to build a fire under the Knicks and Carmelo to try to show them that, hey, the enforcer's still here. I stand with you guys.
No. I don't think that's what it was, because he's disgusted with the Knicks as an organization because of their losing tendencies and because of the way he feels they treat their old school veterans. Now, the New York Knicks will tell you that they have relationships with a lot of their old school guys like the Ewings of the world and others. They have always and will always be family. Charles Oakley is an individual that doesn't believe that they treat old school veterans the way that they should, which is something he has voiced in the past. And I think that his ire was clearly aimed at James Dolan, but he swears it wasn't until the security approached him, not after. So it's all about who you believe. The New York Knicks swear it was before. He swears it was after. That's really the divide that exists in this entire scenario.
I appreciate it.
All right. Thanks a lot. 866-729-ESP is the number to call up. That's 866-729-3776. Your calls to close out the hour before, hopefully, Charles Oakley calls into the show. He reached out this morning. He said he would be calling in to the show today. I'm hoping he does just that to start off hour number 2. It's the biggest news in sports today, him having to be escorted out of Madison Square Garden after getting into an altercation with Garden security and law enforcement officials, allegedly because he was going after Chairman James Dolan in a very unceremonious and insulting verbal fashion. More of that to come up. Plus, we'll get into some NFL talk as well. And, of course, LeBron James and what's going on with them tonight, how they may not play. The list goes on and on. The stories keep coming. And Stephen A. is right here to talk to you about it on ESPN Radio.
Stephen A. Smith Show on ESPN Radio.
big city cultures really throw me off in this day and age. It's almost like they still think this is back in the day where you had more money than anybody and you could afford to find yourself in a situation where you could just buy your way out of problems. You can't do that anymore. Parity exists. Television contracts, collective bargaining, et cetera, et cetera. That's why you can have a better team in Oklahoma City or Cleveland than you do in New York or L.A., which is why you got to have a stout executive who knows the terrain and knows how to get the job done. I'm still trying to figure out how Joe Dumas' name hasn't come up in anybody's mind, considering the job that he did in Detroit. But, I'm still trying to figure it out. Really. Luke in New York, you're live with Stephen A. on ESPN Radio. What's up, Luke?
Stephen A., how's it going?
I'm good. Talk to me.
I just wanted to talk about the Knicks. I think what happened last night is absolutely ridiculous, but I also think it's overshadowed by the way they lost the game, too. I mean, I think if they won last night, it would have kind of helped the Oakland situation out a little bit. And I also think we need to get a new coach in here. I mean, I've been listening to you the past couple of days.
You're right. You're right, Luke. Go ahead, man. You're right. I can't deny it. I was saying to myself, you know what? I need to think more about that. You're right, Luke. Go ahead.
I mean, this is New York City. I mean, I'm 27 years old. I'm going to be 28 in May. I'm old enough to know what it's supposed to be like because I was there. I was around for the Ewing era and all that stuff.
Yep.
I mean, this is ridiculous. You're supposed to come in here and be scared to come into New York City.
And Luke, what has Jeff Hornacek done for you? Listen, I'm not saying the man can't coach, but he has no impact as far as I'm concerned. He's just out there, he's got a job. But he has no impact. There's nobody that resonates with New Yorkers the way we like to be resonated with, the way we like to be touched. You know what I'm saying? I mean, and I say that because let me say this, Luke, I got listeners all over the country. And please, I'm not ignoring anybody. I'm leaving here to get to L.A. in a few days, and I love L.A. more than I love New York. And I think about their job as well and what L.A. needs. I could have a show in Tallahassee. I'd be thinking about what they need. The culture that exists, it resonates. It's got to matter. And I got to tell you, Luke, I think Mark Jackson should be the next head coach.
What I was going to say.
I think you got Luke Walton in L.A. I think that's great. I think Luke Walton fits L.A. You see what I'm saying? Even though they got to get more talent, he fits L.A. I think Mark Jackson should be the next head coach for the New York Knicks.
I think he should have been the coach already. He should. Of course he should have.
Of course he should have. He should have been the coach instead of Mike D'Antoni.
If you want to get into it, he was the one who pretty much built the whole team up in Golden State, and they fired him wrongly, and now look at them.
Yeah, you're right.
I mean, let's get this moving here. This is New York City. We're supposed to be a basketball city.
Got to do something, Luke. I appreciate the call, buddy. We got to do something. No question about it. Let's go to JP in Brooklyn. You're live with Stephen A. on ESPN New York. What's up, JP?
Hey, Steve. I can't help but to think about this book I read, 48 Laws of Power. You read the 48 Laws of Power?
I have not, JP.
Okay. The 48 Laws of Power, the 10th law, it says there are people who you have to stay away from when they're having problems. Phil Jackson, he came in, with all of his troubles, and he just brought the team down to the ground.
Hold on, what troubles did Phil Jackson have? He was retired as an 11-time champion. What were his troubles?
Wait. Okay, he did come in with trouble. He came in with his 11 rings, but he didn't come in, people were questionable about him being a GM. When he first came in, we all praised. I praised him coming in, but there was naysayers out there saying, no, he doesn't have any experience, and we don't know about it.
Okay, we got that. We got it. I got your point. I was just asking you what you meant by troubles. But go ahead real quick because you only got 30 seconds. Go ahead.
I'm sorry. Yeah, but, Phil Jackson is a direct reason why all of this is going down. And Charles Oakley is just echoing what, the fans are trying to say. He went there and told James Dolan himself, look, this is what's going on. And that's what I think is going on. That's what I think the problem is. Phil Jackson needs to go.
I appreciate it. I got you, JP. I understand. I definitely think it's time. I mean, L.A. might be more receptive to Phil because he helped deliver them 5 rings. New York's still starving for a championship for the first time since 1973. Phil Jackson doesn't have the same effect on New Yorkers that he has on L.A., especially since he doesn't want to coach in New York. You might forgive that in L.A., but not in New York. Ain't happening. Hopefully, Charles Oakley is up next. But hour number 2 and Stephen A. are coming at you.
It's here.
Of course, 98.7 FM in New York City. On the line with us right now, as promised, former standout player for the New York Knicks, played for 10 years with the New York Knicks from 1988 to 1998. In 10 years, went to the Eastern Conference semifinals 9 times, went to the conference finals twice, went to an NBA finals once. I'm talking about the enforcer himself, the one and only Charles Oakley is on the line with us right now. Good afternoon, big boy. How you doing, man?
I'm good. How you doing, Steve?
All right. First of all, talk to me. I know that you said what transpired. Just to reiterate for our audience, a lot of people are wondering whether you had ever said something to James Dolan or anybody before security came up to you and approached you and all of that stuff. Right. What is your side of the story? Exactly what happened?
Well, first of all, I want to say I'm sorry to all the fans of the Garden, fans who are watching. Never want to be a troublemaker in life, and it was just a bad scene. I love New York. I gave my heart to it for my whole decade, and afterwards I played here. But I walked in the Garden, simple. I was there 4 minutes. I sit down. I'm talking to people. People talking back to me. And one of the guys I'm with, wow, them guys are watching you, looking at you. I was like, who? Them guys, like 10 or 15 guys on the wall. I was like, I don't know, whatever. Then I see him walk on the court in front of me. I'm not paying attention. Then I see him walk back to the side. So I guess they have to tell Dolan whenever I walk in the Garden. Anyway, so they walk back to the side. We talking. Then about 8 to 10 guys come out. We got orders. You have to leave. Matt, I only been there 3.5, 4 minutes.
They said they said exactly to you. We have orders. You have to leave.
You have to leave the building. Yes.
And that's when everything started.
That's when everything started. So ain't but so much to talk about for more than 4 minutes.
I got you. Let me ask you this question, Charles. What if anything at all were you saying out loud after you sat down in your seat? In that 4 minute span, did you say anything to James Dolan? Did you say anything to anybody with the Knicks?
No. I said something to the guy. I'm like, why y'all looking over here at me? The guys who were looking at me sitting behind the Knicks bench, like standing on the wall. I'm 4 rows from this guy. So I'm going to walk in a place and just start hollering out, James Dolan. I mean, that's embarrassing, man. I did not do none of that. I didn't know the man was sitting in front of me at first until they walked over there. And I'm 4 rows behind him.
Right. So you weren't.
I mean, if I was hollering something out, and plus everybody in the Garden hollering so high. If I'm hollering something directed to him, how could he hear something to 4 rows? Everybody in the Garden hollering.
So just to be clear, what you're saying is that folks who claim or who believe you were shouting stuff at James Dolan and that's why security came over to you, you're saying that never happened. There was no truth to that. Is that correct?
Never happened. John McEnroe was sitting right beside him. If John McEnroe said I said that, he was there. Then on the way out, I spoke to him on the way when I was in handcuffs. He spoke back. And that's the only time I ever said anything near him when I spoke to John. When I was leaving with handcuffs. If I was talking loud, he couldn't hear me if I was talking. Because it's 4 rows and people hollering. But I wasn't even talking to no one. I'm talking the guys who told me about security. I said, I don't know why they watching me. That's what I said.
Charles Oakley right here with Stephen A. on ESPN Radio. Let me ask you this question. Before you were explaining stuff at the very, very beginning, you said that they're supposed to inform James Dolan whenever you're in the arena. That's what you said. How do you know that? Because
several people have told me people who retire from there, it's a rule. They have to, this ain't just this year, it happened last year. 4 security guys walked over me. I was at a game. I let it go. I told 2 or 3 different lawyers,
they can't keep doing this to me when I come in the garden. Talking about I can't walk around. I told the security guard like this. The guy's name is Harry, but he's not there no more. But 4 other guys. And it was fans was there too at this time. I said, this man can't keep sending these people over here and telling me what I can't do. I told them, I want to go where my tickets lie. If my ticket side go this way, I go that way. So when I got up for halftime, they followed me to the bathroom. They followed me back to my seat.
So you're saying that this has been going on for more than a year now. Wherever you go in the garden, they follow you around. Even if you go to the bathroom, they follow you to the bathroom.
Yes. I got witness. It was one of the John Gotti guys there. Some other guys I was with. They like, why did they follow Oak to the bathroom? I didn't know until they told me.
Charles Oakley right here with Stephen A., ESPN Radio. At any time, have the Knicks organization issued you a letter or anything of that nature telling you that you were not welcomed at the Garden, that you were not welcome to Knicks games? Have any of those things happened with you?
No, sir. Nope. I used to own season tickets, so they know they had a letter to send to me. They can send it to my car wash, Brooklyn car wash in Long Island, give it to one of my ex-teammates. I mean, a lot of them don't stand up for me, but it's okay. They leave me out for the drive, but I fought for them every night. I don't like that. When Mason had a problem, or somebody I'm involved with, someone close, I'm gonna speak up. If the person wrong talking about somebody I know, I'm gonna speak up. I'm that type of guy. I played all the years in the NBA. Ask anybody, any coach, I'm a stand-up guy. I don't let you dog my teammates if he's right. If he's wrong, you can do what you want.
Charles Oakley right here with Stephen A. on ESPN Radio. Charles, let's get into what we saw on video. We saw you mush a guy in the face. We saw you push a guy twice, telling him to get his hands off you or whatever. Is there anything about your reactions that you find regrettable today?
I mean, you never want to do nothing to no one in life. But I just, like I said, I've had 7 incidents in the last 6 years. Guys walk up on me. I had an incident in Vegas. I got jumped 2 times. One time it was 8 guys. Next time it was 7 guys. So when people start walking up on me, I never had a rule. I don't let people just walk up on me. Not 8 or 9 guys. One guy, try your luck. 8 or 9 guys, I got to brace myself and be ready for the challenge. And my thing was, let me just get myself together. I don't know what's going to happen because they had no right to walk up on me. Send a New York cop, tell Oakley he got to leave. Escort me out the building. I have to be respect. It was a cop there. Every time he asked me something, I did it. You can call the precinct. I told them there. It was the other guy. They went over bounds for no reason. But I'm not going to, I might have touched some guys, but they touched me. So I got it right. So they want to charge me 3 accounts. I mean, I have to just go to court and see what happens.
Well, but Charles, you and I have known each other for a long time, and I know that I know what an honest guy you are. But at the same time, myself and others would say to you, those guys, they're guard and security. They work for the guard, and they may not be law enforcement officials, but all they did all they were doing was following their job in terms of being instructed by James Dolan. If indeed that's what happened, they were being instructed just to do their job by getting you out of the arena. But when you look at it from that perspective, what? I'm sorry?
But what? I didn't do nothing. They instructed away because they went and told him I'm in the building. Then 2 minutes later, they came and just tried to tell we got orders to. I mean, it was like they really plotted it because they went back to what it was at. Then they came into me and like, we got orders. So you didn't go back to him. You wouldn't have told him I was in the building. He probably said, well, go back, then go get him and get him out the building. I mean, I'm not going to argue with James Dolan. I have really no beef. I've been trying to sit down with this man for 4 or 5 years, find out what did I do to make him dislike me. All I did was play hard for the organization for 10 years and the fans in New York and gave him my heart every night. So he don't have to like me, but he didn't have a right to send. I mean, I bought my ticket to get in. I mean, ain't like they gave me a ticket. They used to give me tickets about 10 years ago. They stopped that. I didn't cry. I just saying. I like the city. I know New York is the mega of basketball, and how much the people in New York love basketball. And I mean,
so just to be clear,
I feel sorry for the fans.
So just to be clear, Charles, you're saying if a law enforcement official had come up to you and identified himself and asked you to leave, it would have been no problem. But the fact that it was guard and security, you're saying that's not good enough because you had a ticket, you have a seat, and you have every right to be at the game. Well, is that an accurate depiction of what you're saying?
It's accurate, but I'm saying when they told the law enforcement to come over here and put the handcuffs on me, Everything he told me, I obey. But them guys, I mean, it's like I said, all these guys walk around with walkie-talkies, with their chest sticking out. I mean, okay, I've been in a situation before. We almost got jumped in the garden back in the 90s, like some guys from the West Coast, Big West, Suge, and all of them. You can ask Mark Jackson and them guys, like, what are your credentials? I said, you don't have no credentials. I work here all the time. So this is our event tonight. I said, when you show me something, I'll show you something. So my thing is, they got walkie-talkies. I don't know what they're doing, but, man, it shouldn't come down to that, man. I don't have nothing personal with that, man.
Charles Oakley right here with Stephen A. on ESPN Radio. Just a few more questions, Charles. Number one, it was reported, and I was one of the people that reported it, that Michael Jordan, Phil Jackson had reached out to Michael Jordan. I heard that he had reached out to Michael Jordan, and Michael Jordan was trying to reach you because we know how tight you guys are. Did Michael Jordan reach you eventually? And if so, what was that conversation like?
I mean, it was just a casual conversation. This is what we do. Talk breeze. You need me to come and get you? I said, well, just fly over and get me. And I said, no, it's New York. I mean, I got love in the city. So I have a couple of my friends, Chris, a couple of my guys from Long Island. One is an ex-cop and one's a real good friend of mine. I work for the charity, Camp Price in Long Island. But, I mean, it didn't come down to, he checked on me. I appreciate the love. He checked on me. I mean, I appreciate the love from everyone who called and see what was going on. And that's what brothers and friends for to do when you love someone. But it's just, I don't know why it's so touchy when I come in the garden. The fans love me. I try to sign autographs. I take pictures. I show a good time. I mean, I don't go like I used to because I just say, hey, once or twice a year, I just go 7, 8, 9, 10 times a year. But no, it's just bad. But
Charles, people believe that, you talked about how you've been trying to reach out to James Dolan for 4 or 5 years to talk to him to see what his problem was with you. But you've been on the record being relatively critical of the Knicks and relatively critical of James Dolan. Okay. So you had to know he wouldn't like you too much, right? So why have you been trying to reach out to him?
I've been saying the same thing since I've been saying since 88 when I came to New York. So if it's critical, I ain't critical, man. You more critical. Other people in the air, it's a bigger time critical. I might have said, yes. It ain't the article, it's the headlines. And somebody told me he get mad at the headline. I don't write the headlines. He asked me questions. I have great conversations. I mean, if you say like this year, ask me how many games the Knicks win. I said 37-42. I mean, what do I supposed to say? They're gonna win 60? Huh? I mean, look at the talent what they got. I mean, come on. It is what it is. But I don't have nothing personal against this man. I mean, I died on the floor, took charges, got banged up. I mean, didn't cry about nothing. Didn't cry about how much money I paid. I played for the love of the game, my teammates, and the fans. Because at the end of the day, you're going to see more fans in life who watch you play, and they let the fans judge you how you play on the court. Don't be trying to do all this self-promotion with themselves. At the end of the day, fans know real basketball. They don't know what people do. You can't be fake out there playing basketball. You got to show people you have IQ and you understand basketball.
Charles Oakley, one of the things that a lot of folks had a problem with was the statement that the New York Knicks issued, the last line or so in their statement, where they said you were a great Knick, but they hope you get the help. They hope he gets some help soon, or help he gets the help he needs. What was your reaction when you saw that last line from the Knicks PR department?
That's another smack in the face, like the security guard came over there and trying to tell me to leave. I have a ticket. They good PR, but I don't know. They want to be cute with the statements, but that's cool though. I mean, you can't trust you trust my character and all this. It's cool. You trusted 10 years when I played there. I'm the same guy. So whether having 10 years, I'm the same guy. So they want to say that, be all harsh about things. I can deal with it, but when I come by myself. Most of the time, I ain't coming and send 10, 12 people to try to make something happen. And, you get in my face, you do this and that, I'm going to protect myself. They would send one guy like they should have, like the police should come over and talk to me like a gentleman, not 10 people. So you send 10 people at one person, I mean, it's a coward move anyway.
At any point in the past or currently, I already asked you, had you been banned from Madison Square Garden? I want to follow up and make sure that I heard your answer correct.
No,
that's never happened.
No, I haven't got no letter.
Okay. Do you care at this point whether or not that happens?
I mean, my thing is, I would love to be able to go to the Garden, but I don't want to keep going to the Garden. All this is going to keep happening. I mean, my thing, I feel sorry for the fans because those fans like me and they appreciate me and I appreciate them. And at the same time, I don't have to have this to go to the Garden every time I go. Somebody telling me, watching me, looking over me.
If you had one final statement that you wanted fans in the New York Knicks to know, what would that be?
I mean, I love New York. I love the fans. I mean, they've been great to me over my career. They helped me in my career. And I just wish that whoever, Dolan and myself, I would still try to work something out with. I'm not a hater. You know, and maybe
well,
one
why
guy.
Desire to work anything? Why Desire to work anything out with James Dolan at this point? Why?
I mean, because, like I said, everything bad ain't bad. Cause we can try to, it's already bad enough what's going on. I mean, 20 years, 2 years in play. I mean, the fans is tired of watching stuff like that. I mean, let's try to start somewhere. Maybe I can come and make a suggestion, make them get better. Who knows? I mean, they need some kind of, diehard barrier or Seals cat barrier or something to they need a jump.
I got you.
Crisscross, ain't but one of them left, so.
Charles Oakley, man, I appreciate the time, buddy. Thanks for calling into the show. I appreciate it, man. Take it easy. One and only Charles Oakley right here with Stephen A. on ESPN Radio, 866-729 ESPN. That's 866-729-3776. You heard Charles Oakley and what he had to say in regards to what transpired yesterday. What's your reaction to it based on what happened last night? Not yesterday, but last night. Your reaction and more coming up next. It's Stephen A. ESPN Radio. He wanted to clarify was that there wasn't law enforcement officials that walked up to him. It was just dudes that work in the Garden. That's what he was saying. Why I got to leave? I got a ticket. He apologized to New York fans and what have you, but not so much. I don't know how you feel about that. I thought the apology could have been stronger. We can't condone violence, particularly in this day and age. But he was embarrassed by what transpired. New York Knicks fans didn't come to the game to see that. He acknowledged that. We appreciate that. And he seemed hurt. The New York Knicks don't want him there. Still willing to talk to James Dolan. Still believes there's something that he could do to help the New York Knicks because fans are tired of losing. Just like Magic Johnson is in L.A. Except Magic Johnson isn't fighting with anybody. He's busy owning things. Even though Oakley owes all those car washes. But anyway. The point is, you heard that. You also heard him say that Michael Jordan got in touch with him, said, you need me to get on a plane and come get you. Oakley said, no, I'm fine. But Michael Jordan was willing to come and get him out of jail. But he was let go in about 3 hours. Interesting, no doubt about it. Lots to this. You're listening to Stephen A., ESPN Radio. Let's go back to the phones. Let's go to Alex in Los Angeles. You're live at Stephen A. on ESPN Radio. What's going on, Alex?
Stephen A., how you doing?
I'm doing all right. Thank you for calling. What's up?
Quick question. I didn't get the fact that Oakley wasn't welcome at the Garden. I don't understand.
No. He said that he's never received a letter from the Knicks organization banning him from the Garden or anything like that. So if there wasn't anything like that going on, I'm sorry.
Got it. But why do people follow? Why does security have to follow him? And he had mentioned that, hey, they did it to him before, and that they do that to other players as well.
Listen, I will tell you that James Dolan, to say the least, is a very eccentric owner. I mean, every time guys talk, there's PR folks around. Their accessibility is limited. The New York Knicks are a special organization in that regard. I don't know if what Charles Oakley says to be fact, because I don't know. I have to call the Knicks in fairness to them and ask, indeed, do they have security following Charles Oakley around even when he goes to the bathroom? But what I would tell you is that there are plenty of people familiar with the Knicks since the James Dolan era began. I would tell you they wouldn't put it past them. But we don't know definitively whether or not that's something that happened.
I got you, because I just familiar with the LA team here. I mean, there's a lot of love for ex-players out here, so I figured I don't know why they have to follow this guy. He did put his heart out there for 10 years or so. So I just
10 years, yeah. Alex, I appreciate it. I appreciate the call, Alex. Thank you so much. Let's go to Lenny in North Carolina. You're live at Stephen A. on ESPN Radio. What's up, Lenny?
Hey, what's going on, brother? Hey,
talk to me
real quick. Number one, I think, and don't hold me to this, I think that once they asked him to leave, that's where the criminal trespass came in.
Okay.
Because he did not leave. So don't hold me to that. I'm not a lawyer, but
no. The only reason, that's valid on your part. The only reason that I asked about the criminal trespass, because if they had issued him a letter beforehand telling him not to appear at the Garden, and he showed up anyway, that could have applied. That could have been applicable there as well in terms of that specific charge. That's the only reason I asked that question when I was on First Take this morning, and then when I was on radio today. Go ahead.
But then that would be a felony, if I'm not mistaken. Like I said, I'm not a lawyer, and I don't live in New York, so I really don't know. But once they ask you to leave, you got to go. Now, number two, if James Dolan's skin is that thin, sit up in the booth and don't watch, because I'm pretty sure at least 5,000 fans have the same feeling, is that you are running this franchise into the ground. And they probably said the exact same thing that Oak said. So what are you going to throw out? Well,
here's the bottom line. Here's the bottom line. Since Van Gundy departed from the New York Knicks on December 8th of 2001, the New York Knicks are 509 and 740. They are 231 games under 500. They have just 4 playoff appearances in 16 years and just 7 playoff wins in 16 years. You have to win 4 playoff games just to win 1 series. They've won 7 playoff games in 16 years.
And he is running that franchise. One of the storied franchise in NBA history. He's running it into the ground. And I'm 100% certain there are some fans who felt like Oak and just said, you know what? We're tired of you.
I got you.
Go.
Lenny, I appreciate the call, buddy. Thank you so much. 866-729-ESPN. It's 866-729-3776. More of the Stephen A. Smith Show. Talking Charles Oakley, talking the New York Knicks. Inevitably, we're talking Phil Jackson. We know that is unavoidable. List goes on. And so does the misery. From coast to coast. More of the Stephen A. Smith Show on ESPN. Stephen A. Smith Show, ESPN Radio, coming at you from 98.7 FM in New York, 710 ESPN LA, and of course, Sirius XM, ESPN Radio, Channel 80. Before I get back to the phone calls about Charles Oakley and his incident at Madison Square Garden last night, I wanted to veer right, if you will, to President Donald Trump because of Steph Curry of the Golden State Warriors and what he had to say. As you know, Steph Curry is... he endorses Under Armour. CEO Kevin Plank endorsed Donald Trump on Tuesday, calling him a quote-unquote asset to the country. The Warriors star responded to his sponsor's comment with a shorter, sharper label for the president. He said, I agree with the description if you remove the ET from asset. That's what Steph Curry told the San Jose Mercury News. Here's my thing, y'all. I'm on the record. I didn't vote for Trump. Didn't support his rhetoric. I respect what 62.9 million people said, though. And more importantly, in this country of ours, you respect the office. You can attack his policies. You can attack his rhetoric. You can do a lot of things to get your message across. But when you say stuff like that, or worse, on a personal level, what you've essentially done is lower yourself to the level you believe the president is at. He's the president. This is a democracy. The election was won fair and square, and I don't want to hear anything about a popular vote, because we all know when it comes to the presidency, it's about the electoral college vote. The reason why that matters is because you know the game before you play it. And if you're Hillary or Bernie or anybody else, Hillary in this case, because not Bernie, you knew the rules when you entered the presidential election. You knew the objective was to get 270 electoral college votes. Not 65 or 66 million popular votes. You came up short. You lost. Hillary Clinton accepts it. Former President Barack Obama accepts it. Congress and the Senate accepts it. Most Americans accept it. For those of you who don't, get a life. Wake up, hold the man accountable for promises he made, and see if he delivers. And if he acts juvenile or asinine or anything else in the process, highlight what he acts, how he's acting. That's entirely different than characterizing him as what he is. We're a nation of laws. We're a democracy. Chances are, somewhere along the line, there was a worse president than he may be. Or there may be better. We don't know. But I do know this. In America, we always survive before elevating ourselves and prospering. It's a 4 and 8 year lease on the presidency. That's it. And regardless of the damage that he can do, we'll have to wait and see whether or not he does some good. And we get ourselves nowhere by conducting ourselves in a fashion we think he's conducting himself in, no matter how childish he may appear at times. You're no better when you act no better. Respect the office. Hold the individual accountable, but respect the office. Because if we don't, we damn sure can't expect anybody else in the world to do so. (866-729-ESPN). It's 866-729-3776. Everybody's fine with what's going on in our world until it works against them. Then all of a sudden it ain't fine no more. It's not how it works in a democracy. Nobody gets what they want all the time. Nobody. Get over it. Mike in Los Angeles, you're live with Stephen A. on ESPN Radio. What's up?
Hey, Stephen A., long-time caller, man. I just had a question. I want your opinion. Currently constructed, man, nobody's built to go 7 games with Golden State in the series. I want to know what team you feel is maybe a move away for possibly competing with them besides Cleveland. Thanks, Stephen A.
Thank you. Believe it or not, you could easily say San Antonio because of the horses they have. I think the other team built to compete with them, believe it or not, as shocking as this may be to you, Boston. If Boston got a prolific scorer, the energy that they play with, or Washington even, the energy that these guys play with and how they go after it matters to me. And I think that's how you have to go at Golden State. So to Frank in Manhattan, you're live with Stephen A. on ESPN Radio. What's up, Frank?
Stephen A., good afternoon, my brother. How you doing?
I'm doing great, Frank. Go ahead real quick, buddy.
Yeah, as we just heard, we heard it from the thoroughbred's mouth. You know, Oakman didn't go there to bother nobody. He wanted to see the Knicks play the Clippers, and only had to send the goons after him. You know, he constantly got the goons follow him in the bathroom, all over the garden. Like, this is ridiculous. Come on, man. You know, growing up, where in the areas we grew up in, you know, we don't take too kindly to people putting their hands on us. Now, I don't condone no violence, but come on, man. Sometimes these security guards think they're cops, and they want to act the court.
Stop right there. Stop right there. You're right, Frank. Sometimes. As somebody who's been a frequent visitor to Madison Square Garden over the years, I know a lot of these security guards. A lot of them. Inside Madison Square Garden. These are some good people, man. Sincerely, these are some good people. Those guys that cover the courts and guard the tunnels and everything, these are some great guys, man. And something else that we have an obligation to bring forward. They were highly reluctant to do anything to Oakley. They truly, you could tell it was an order they didn't want to follow, Frank. But they had to. And they were asking him to go. And like I said, Oakley apologized for a reason. Like he said, they didn't have any benefit. If you're going to gang up on him, that's different. But the flip side to it, he mushed one guy and shoved another twice. And it wasn't until that happened that they jumped on him. We have an obligation to point that out, Frank. That's only fair.
He was touching him in the stomach. And if you go back to the video and analyze the real close, and I'm not saying nobody did or did it, but the guy that he pushed twice, you could see the guy putting his hand.
Yeah, wait a minute, Frank. But that was after he had mushed the other guy in the face. All I'm saying to you is that they are guard and security. Now, I got to let him speak, and if he feels like you ain't law enforcement, who the hell are you? That's fine. But guard and security is there for a reason. If the owner says he wants you out, they have an obligation to follow their orders. We can't blame them and then call them goons like they did something wrong or they're reprehensible. Oakley had a good relationship with you. Did you watch the video? Did you see how reluctant they were to do anything? It made them sick to their stomach that they had to force him out because he's Charles Oakley. If you love him, Frank, imagine how they feel about him. But they got a boss, and that's their orders.
Years that he played here, but Dolan has a problem that he's like the big boss, some mob guy, and he's sending these guys after him.
He does have a problem.
Like, come on, like, you disrespect.
Frank, he does have a problem. All I'm saying to you is aiming your eye at Dolan is different. I can't point the finger at security who's employed by the man and asked to do a job, and that's all they did. I can't do that. And neither can you. 866-729-ESPN is 866-729-3776. More of your phone calls to close out the show in a minute. It's Stephen A. on ESPN Radio.
How you doing?
He spoke out about Terrell Owens, saying that his off-field behavior was not justification. Or was justification, rather, for him not making the Hall of Fame. That's a disgrace. Dan Fouts, great quarterback for the San Diego Chargers. Air Coryell, one of the most potent offenses in NFL history. For him to utter that stuff out of his mouth, I don't want to hear that. That's nonsense. Terrell Owens, 15,934 yards. Terrell Owens, 153 career touchdowns. One of the greatest receivers in NFL history. You ain't in the Hall of Fame. That's a disgrace. Last item. I don't even know what to say. I really don't. By the way, it's the most decorated documentary of the year, winning over 45 awards, including the Directors Guild of America, the Producers Guild of America, and 4 Critics' Choice Documentary Awards for Best Documentary Feature. Critics have declared it a triumph, a landmark achievement, the #1 documentary of the year. And now it's an Academy Award nominee, O.J. Made in America. That's airing Sunday night, 8 p.m. Eastern on ESPN2. I saw it. I saw all 5 episodes. I'm going to watch it again. It was that good. It really, really was. Tom and Dobbs Server, you're live with Stephen A. Go ahead, Tom, real quick.
Hey, Stephen A. Great job on the coverage today. Big day going, a lot going on. Quick question for you.
Yep.
The incident last night, the very sad incident, I think within the next 48 hours is going to prompt Dolan to either make a move on Jackson or quicken a trade of Melo to take him off the headlines. You saw how he was squirming in his seat last night.
That's kind of interesting. Because that's why he hired Phil in the first place, to get his name out of the headlines.
Right.
Possible. In my opinion, don't get me wrong, it wasn't the only reason, because he was pursuing Phil for quite a long time. But people were about to protest outside the doors of Madison Square Garden the day he hired Phil. So you're right about that. But call me back tomorrow, Tom, when we have more time to discuss that. I like that idea on your part. Vinny in New York, you're live with Stephen A. Real quick, Vinny, go.
Oh, hey, Stephen A. Smith. How you going?
I'm doing great. Go ahead.
Anyway, I'm just, as a Knicks fan for my entire life, I've just been seeing the Knicks just be so terrible over the years, and I just getting very, very sick of it. But I just want to ask you this. When it comes to Carmelo Anthony, I like Carmelo, but it just feels like, I just wonder, when is he going to be traded, do you think, and what team do you think would be perfect for him? Because
I think he's going to be traded this summer, more so than the trading deadline, unless they find somebody. I think that Carmelo is one of the most prolific offensive players of our generation, but he hasn't won on the NBA level. He's gotten that bounce out of the first round 8 times. He's missed the playoffs about 4 times. He's going to just 1 conference finals, and he never played in an NBA finals. At some point in time, that needs to sicken him just a little bit more. I know what a big-time player he can be. I would love to see him with LeBron, but I would equally love to see him with CP3. And I know for a fact that Chris Paul would love to have him in Los Angeles with the Clippers. There is no doubt about that. Once upon a time, Chris Paul was willing to come here until Phil arrived. Phil doesn't have too many folks that like him these days. It's just that simple. Gotta run. Let's go to Stacy in New York real quick. I'm sorry to rush you, but you got less than 45 seconds. Go.
Hi, Stephen A. This is Stacy. I just wanted to thank you for coming back to New York to ESPN Radio. As a diehard Knicks fan since the 1980s, I'm deeply saddened by all of the events that's taken place there. I currently have season tickets, and, because of not even what happened with Charles Oakley, that's despite the fact, but what Phil Jackson's doing to Melo and with the whole situation with the revolving door athletes, I'm just turned off, totally disgusted.
You should be.
And, I'm just, I don't know what else to do.
Stacey, what they got to do is they got to improve their roster. But I personally believe Phil Jackson has to go because I don't think he's been that really interested in being here to begin with. I'd hire Mark Jackson as a coach. I'd look at Joe Dumars as an executive. I consider Steve Mills going back and Phil